Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Ariely, end-of-life doula and founder of Comforting Closure. Today, we're discussing a delicate and profound subject, the complex grief stemming from the loss of a limb or bodily function. I'm honored to have James Jones with us, a resilient individual who turned the pain of limb loss into a story of empowerment. He established the QOL Group, a nonprofit that works to enhance the quality of life for those who are differently abled. James, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for having me on your show. And you are right. It is a passion of love and empowerment. And I am daily trying to get to be that resilient person. It's a daily challenge. But thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Can you start off by telling us a bit about who you were before the accident?
Most definitely. Um, it started out, I had the accident in 2018. Beforehand, uh, saw myself as this person as a rise to success track, wanting to do things by a certain age, mechanically. Um, had to uh, get education, all of this stuff that I thought that really mattered. Um, and it was a point of trying to figure out exactly what my purpose was. I was kind of having a conflict before the accident, but it was sort of like I'm working, working, working. It was all mechanical. And it was seeming to really pull down spiritually on me, and definitely just in the awareness phase of where I was in life. But it definitely was all about my family, both my internal family with my wife, my son, and my daughter, and my parents, and my extended family, my cousins, and all that, taking care of everyone else's needs, trying to be there for them. um, so that was what my focus was, very much of a people pleasing. And that's what it was before the actual incident in 2018. But the passion was there for people. And I think that's what the people pleasing part of it was the passion for people. Um, but yeah, we'll get into how to reform that and make that to 180 to where it actually benefits a win-win.
Yeah. So, you just said that you got into a car accident in 2018 and it changed your life. Can you share that uh, the initial emotions and thoughts that you experienced upon realizing the extent of your loss?
It was in 2018, um, February to be exact. I had just started a new job a month prior. Um, Great company, it was great people, and I was looking for new changes. A couple of months back, like I was saying, I was looking for actually my passion and trying to figure out exactly where I was going next. Um, and so I had began meditating and praying and trying to figure out all these things. And when that incident happened in February, I was um, in a car accident. Was basically skidding off the road and hit a pothole. My wife ended up having a tourniquet and saving my life. Um, Ended up having a severed femoral artery. Uh, the shin on my left leg was shattered. Had to have a plate in that. Ended up having an amputation on my right leg, which was a right above the knee. And when that incident happened, it was sort of like I looked at it, was in no pain, but then just looked up and just said, as a spiritual person, that it's all in your hands. And speaking to my creator and saying that nothing happens by happenstance. And so I took that as there has to be something greater than this. And so that's kind of what was going on with the car accident, that physically and mentally and spiritually changed my life.
So many people haven't heard of disenfranchised grief, so I'm just going to explain that really quickly. It's a sense of loss that is not acknowledged or socially supported, and limb loss or loss of bodily function sits under this type of grief. So people who experience disenfranchised grief they often feel isolated and suppress the grieving process. So, James, do you mind talking about your grieving process and how it evolved over time?
Yeah, I stated before how my life had been mechanical. It was a roadmap that I very much saw fit for myself and thought that I was in control. It was do this by a certain age, have this by a certain age, all of that. School degrees, what everyone teaches you. When this incident happened, as far as the grief, the disenfranchised grief, it was an evolution and bouts and experiences that I had never really felt before. I was isolated because no one around me had ever gone through this before, no one I could talk to. Um, and I found myself isolated and finding new predicaments coming. Um, it could be every month, especially in the very beginning when the incident happened. Uh, Things that people really who are outside of disability community really don't know, which was me. And these things can vary from phantom limb pain. It could vary from PTSD, depression, uh, people who you are really trying to talk to who were your inner circle before uh, become out of the circle because the connection is different. And there's a whole new ecosystem of disability that me myself I did not understand or was unaware of.
First of all, did it surprise you that your community changed so much?
Being a people pleaser was something that, you know, achieving new heights, always trying to strive to be more. And in return, when I was at my lowest, I thought that that would be reciprocated to where I would have um, a simple level of at least um, a part of that coming back. But I think it was more part of me and myself um, not asking for help. Ego was a lot of it. Um, Trying to maneuver this new life, but also trying to maintain the person that I was before, which is impossible because it's a whole new world. And I did not understand that at the time. And so when people were continuing to be who they were, and I was being different, um, the communication was lost in translation. And that's just what we needed to focus on is how do I communicate what I need more in a way that I didn't or want to seem burdensome to the people who I have helped and loved and who have helped me before and not seem to be a burden. And I think that was one of the biggest things was trying to figure out that balance between this new ecosystem.
I know that when we spoke before, you talked about how you ignored a lot of this grief in your community. You know, a lot of people depend on you because
Yeah.
you have an advanced degree. Uh, people come to you a lot, and so you ignored these feelings for a good couple years. Um, so
Few years.
yeah, so tell me
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that. Like all of a sudden, like
yeah,
how
yeah.
did this all of a sudden it come back to you? How did it come back to bite you?
Tracy, Tracy, life has a funny way of working itself out. Um, I had gone through uh, a, a few changes within the job frame, all of that professionalism, all of that nice stuff. And then I had put myself on the back burner because work focus, I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have a son, I have parents who are getting older. My dad had just retired. I have, relatives, all of that. And it was a part of just going with the flow. And when my world kind of stopped, um, and it kind of just froze, and then it became about internal instead of external. And then I really had to deal with the issues that I had put on hold for so long, such as a missing limb. I was, I believe, 43 at the time when I lost my limb. Uh, and getting to that age and having all your faculties until that point in time and having that ego and not really wanting people to see you as a broken vessel, which was ego, and going full force until you run into this roadblock. And then it was absolutely um, a reflection on you need to get yourself together. You can't go on and help anyone else until you actually deal with all the things that you have going on within your life. So I had to go back through all the emotions that I had suppressed about losing the limb, um, becoming an amputee, having people look at me differently, or my perception of people looking at me differently, um, and try to figure out this new role. And with that came depression, PTSD, um, a whole flood of the grief process that I didn't experience in the beginning because my whole focus was I need to get better fast so I can get back to work, get back to doing what I'm doing. I have a daughter who's about to graduate from high school and go to college. I have all of these things that needs to be done. I've got everything was timed out and nothing was left for me to actually sit in what I was going through and acknowledge the profound loss, not in a way of death where it is someone is laid to rest and it's final and you can go and visit that gravesite or have those memories, but it was something of I've lost something that was with me that will forever change my life now, and I have to live a brand new life. It's sort of like a baby taking off and learning to walk again is what I had to do. Um, it was me learning to do things all over again in a different way from a mindset that was there 40 something years beforehand. And that meant me mentally trying to prepare others as I'm trying to prepare myself, not wanting to be a burden, as I said before, which is so cliche and ironic because we all have these things that we are going through that if we just take that word burden off of it, the camaraderie, the emotional intelligence, the conversations that we could have with other people that are inspiring us could actually make a difference in our mental, spiritual, and physical health that would keep us from being isolated so much and to think that we are alone in this process. And I think that's one of the biggest things with this grief process that I was dealing with was I was isolated and I was keeping people out and uh, just trying to go with the flow and making sure that I was just um, the same person as before, which is not true. In any part of grief, are you the same? And that's what I was dealing with. And silently, but really trying to figure it out. And when it all came to a halt and I had nothing but time to really get to understand, and still, I am still trying to get to understand. I don't think that there will ever be a time where I have completely figured this thing out, but I am trying to, as best as I can, move forward with what I have been given in the most positive way possible with what I know how.
Most most people don't realize that that grief isn't going away. You are changed and it's a new norm. Your life has a new norm. Um, so it's not, hey, I'm going to get better and then be all happy and things are going to go smoothly. It's that coming back, you'll always come back to, whatever emotions that you need to go through, anger or guilt or sadness, as you've said. And that's really healthy, actually. Um,
Yeah,
so,
being vulnerable. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
no,
Go
please
ahead.
go, go, go.
Yeah, the vulnerability of it, especially in different cultures. An African American man trying to do right, you get the family, you do all of this stuff, and you're bulletproof. Anything happens to you, you keep rolling on. Well, that will kill you faster if you don't deal with things that are happening. Because if you're bottling them in, what you're doing is you are killing yourself silently from within. If you are not speaking to someone, I had to get a whole new therapist. If you're not talking to other people who are in a similar condition, I had to go to an Empower Fest for an amputee community in order to talk to other amputees and see what's going on. If you are not seeing other people who are like you or investing in your quality of life and trying to figure out exactly how best fit for you to continue to maneuver in this world where disability is considered a double handicap. It's a handicap to begin with, but then to add on to that, people don't or feel as though just because you've lost a limb, you've lost things that your ability to do what you were doing beforehand, which is not true. Um, you may not walk as fast, you may not do as what you normally do, but your mentals are still there if you have if you have the supporting um, ecosystem around you, and that's with any loss. If the ecosystem around you can support and empathize and truly invest and understand what it is to know what you're going through. And sometimes it's as simple as someone calling asking you, how are you doing? On those days where you don't feel so good. It could be as simple as someone just saying, hey, let's go and do this. Um, and not saying that no one does. And sometimes, there are times where may be invited out, but physically or mentally, I'm not there to go out at that time and space. And that's another thing too, which makes it hard. People want to help at times, and at other times when you have a loss, there are some times when you are just in your grieving period or your reflection period or your meditation period where you are needing to figure things out for the next 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 month, what your plans are, what you're having to do, what is needed the most. And you have to have those people in your life, though that support group that understands that things will not always be the same, but the love is still there. And as long as love is there, then we haven't dropped anything. We just have to approach it in a brand new way. Um, and so I think the most important part is the surrounding yourself with the ecosystem and for you to actually be vulnerable to talk about these things in a safe place to where you know that people are actually genuinely there for your well-being and not there just to see if failure is a part of your option because that doesn't do anyone good if we're just talking just to see if I'm coming along or if I'm having a setback. Um, I need it to be consistent. And that's where that comforting for closure is coming from. That's where we're needing that understanding of how to embrace from across the board for those who have lost and for those who are comforting those who have lost. How do we bridge that gap?
So I'm not going to say the most important, but yeah, the most important people in your ecosystem, your family. You know, how have your relationships within your family, how has that changed? How have they learned to support and be vulnerable themselves and match your vulnerability?
That's an interesting question. Um, Many of them are, we are still the same. We're gonna laugh and joke, and everything is gonna be okay. We're going to continue to go on as if everything is okay because it is. Um, and then, there are some that you will find um, that are going through difficult times themselves, you know, and like I said before, and like you stated, I've been a person of um, comfort to them, and so with that, it's it's the same in some parts where I am still being called on to be their comforter, um, and maybe one day the reciprocation on that will be returned. But I can only be who I am, and they can only be who they are. And there was someone who I admired who said this. It's a matter of capacity. Some people's capacity to understand, to really get situational awareness and emotional intelligence, capacity for love could be one paint. Mine could be 10 gallons. And I have to respect where they are. And with that, they would have to respect where I am. And in times of where I am not at my best, there will be times where things will be ignored, phone calls of that sort, and um, trying to help and be there because I need to replenish myself before I can actually give out to others. And so that's kind of where the QOL came in, is because in this replenishing, it was I'm giving, but let me figure out how to give to where my passion is and to people who are like me or look like me and don't have the resources. And so let me give that to them so they could have a quality of life and independence and don't seem to be stuck in a environment to where they feel they have to be a burden or dependent on someone else. Let me give them at least a little bit of freedom. Um, that could be anywhere from wheelchairs to crutches to strollers to, and we've given many of these things to several people in need, and many are the elderly. But we're trying to reach out to a generation of those who are beyond that, to the young community who we know as a growing number of the disabled, from motorcycle accidents to sepsis to all these things that create limb loss, um, and are not necessarily getting the proper network. And we're trying to bridge that gap and do that. But for my family's concerned, that's kind of where I had to put my focus on them on the back burner for that and really focus on the other side of it to where my passion really lied. And my passion lies with my family. Don't get me wrong. I love them. I love them all. I love them for exactly who they are. Uh, they bring joy to me. We have a good time. Uh, and, they'll tell you in a minute that I probably haven't changed because my attitude is still the same. But, it's just a little bit of now of I've come to the point in my life where what am I to do with this newfound experience that I have? And so we're still working through that with the family thing.
But I love how you understand that your family and those that you love can't be the end all. And so you're taking and channeling that emotion into the QL group. And so that you're not just dependent on them, you are doing something healthy. Something I'm really curious about, and we're going to talk further about the QL group because I
Oh,
absolutely love the group, but something I'm really curious about because when I work with people as a grief coach, a lot of people I work with have uh, have lost a person, and so we're working with the emotions and some of
yes.
the physicality, but mostly the emotional aspect and how it shows up. Now, with limb loss, you're dealing with having to not only have emotional recovery, but physical healing also. How did you navigate the interplay between those two?
Tracy, I'm going to let you know it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
Um, it's it wasn't easy. In the beginning, my whole focus was once I get my prosthetic leg, everything is going to be fine. Once I get this leg, I'm going to go on and just continue on in business as usual. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't work that way. At least not for me. You know, no one told me that, after having, and I had three amputations uh, on the leg because of the infection and how the accident happened. And I was out in the countryside for a long time before the ambulance came. They were talking about care flighting, but nonetheless. And so three amputations, it was um, long extended and then short extended. Um, that left me in the hospital for a little while, getting through all of the healing of the skin, the nerves are being rearranged and figuring all of that out, and then going through um, trying to heal the wound, going through fitting of a prosthetic, going through learning how to walk on a prosthetic, learning to figure out phantom limb pain. And if you don't know what phantom limb pain, it is a attack on the nerves and whatever part of your body that was amputated, the neurological system doesn't understand that that part of your body has gone now. And when your brain is looking for that particular spot, what it does is send signals and is trying to hit that leg and those nerves. And it ended up just, it could be from stabbing pain and needles, and it could last anywhere from a few seconds to hours at most, from what I've heard. I've never had it done that badly. Um, but there's a lot of psychological factors that go into this that I was unprepared for. And it, like I said, even with the incident, it created the PTSD. Was in depression for a while because being young, which I considered young, and having this being done was like it wasn't a life goal of mine. Like I said, I was mechanical. I had, you got dreams and goals. My, still can reach them, but it was sort of like I'm trying to get this fast track and trying to do all of this stuff. And for me, mentally, it went towards a place of, well, what is next after all of this? When the world stopped spinning and it came to a halt, it really became, now I need to deal with the emotional side of all of this. And then that's when one day it just hit me. And when it all came rolling in, um, I had to call many family members and was like expressing my sorrow to them that I couldn't be who I was before to them because of who I am now. Can you imagine that? Me apologizing for being an amputee, which I didn't do on my own, and expressing that I felt like a disappointment to people who I basically had put in my mind had counted on me, that I was letting down, and in a way that was unhealthy. And that was an unhealthy thing that I had to realize, that the apologies that I were giving to people was somewhat of a release in a backwards way, because I think my apology was reversed. I think I was mainly telling them that I cannot be the person who I was before, or I will not subject myself to the person that I was before. Um, and no matter how you take it, I'm sorry for that, but I would have to continue on my journey of figuring out where my passion lies and who I need to give my energy to. And that if my energy does not come to you as it fully did before, then that is what this new process is, without really saying it. And like I said, with this process, there is no book that tells you how to. You're figuring it out as you go. And the journey is, if you can help somebody else through this process, that's the main thing. And this is why, the group is so important. But the closure of it is in finding comfort in the closure and continuing, because closure is not the end, it is a healing process of trying to find a way of dealing with what you have right now going on. And so you don't want to dwell on the incident. You want to put your mind on the resolution and what the greater outcome of it can be. And you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with positive influences that can help you reach those goals, but also at the same time understand that the pressure of having all of this on your shoulders and trying to navigate new terrain is a little different. So grace and mercy is definitely needed in this. But I think my family has definitely reached that point of understanding that. They're checking more now on my well-being and understanding. Um, and so I'm grateful for them. I love them dearly, all of them, and they know that. And so that's we're beginning to look at this in a different light. And I'm pretty sure a year from now, even 6 months from now, things will continue to keep getting better. And that's my meditational hope.
So the QOL group, tell me, because we said, we talked about it before a little bit on the podcast or on this episode about how you really channeled and are channeling yourself into helping other people. And so out of that, and it came the QLL group, or the quality of life group. So tell us about that, and
Yeah.
tell us about how that's helping in your healing and
Uh,
redefining your quality of life.
it started with me in my office one day, watched a military video of people who were not being able to get the proper access that they were needing. Many had to go to foreign countries to get amputations from um, a couple of bombings that have happened to them while they were at war, that they needed desperately because they couldn't stand up. They had to. I mean, it wasn't. I can't remember what the documentary was, but it changed my whole perspective. And in seeing that, along with the things that I was going through, I was like, wouldn't that be a great idea to start something that could possibly help those who are in need, like myself? And it happened in 2021, and it started with that, and created it, had everything going, um, and then decided to get it together and then go to school and try to learn health law, policy, and management. Did that, came back, and now we're in the throes. But even during that, what we do at QOL is providing medical equipment to those who are in need, um, and trying to get them to have the independence, even if that's a shower chair, a stroller, a walker, anywhere where they are able to have some kind of um, independence on their own, so where they can get up and get out and walk around and do that. So many of our community, and especially, and I'm not just saying veterans. I mean, it's across the board. Um, Having to depend on other people, and even just to take a shower with the shower chair or the railings and all this kind of stuff, people go into a mental lockdown. First of all, is because their navigation in life has changed dramatically. It's a 180. From where you're used to doing things on your own to now you're unable to do those things in which was so easily given to you. And now you're having the the resolve to try to have others help you who you may see who are in your mind perceiving that you may be a burden. And I keep using that word because that's how definitely you feel. And so, in doing so, we want to make sure that we're not adding on to, and this is strong because I'm saying it as if I can change it, but um, in some small way, I want to make a little bit of a difference. Can't change your depression. I can't change your mood, your PTSD, or anything like that. But if you can just take a walker and walk outside for a few minutes, get some fresh air by yourself, if you could actually get in and out of the shower using the shower chair and a rail by yourself, any form of independence that makes you not depend on other people, um, where you could have uh, high serotonin, higher dopamine. You don't have to have those intrusive thoughts, and many of it leads to not only for veterans but for majority of disabled people, uh, suicide or alcoholism or drug use, um, and that's the as you do in your job so well, the comfort of closure and trying to find those things before having to the remaining of your life be as easy and smooth as it should be without you having internal turmoil of things that may not even be there, but you're conjuring it because this is what you're dealing with now that you haven't dealt with before. And so quality of life is created to give a little bit of hope in a society where claims are being denied for the basics of strollers and canes and all this and people who cannot afford it. Um, and so that's where it was lifted out of. Um, and that's kind of where the passion comes from. And it feeds me because it gives me the opportunity to give back and put a smile on someone else's face and see that that difference is being made. And not for a selfish reason of my own, but because I know what it's like to be in a position where in the beginning, it was hand and foot for my wife to take care of me, my mother to be here, and having people come in and out for the nursing and all of that, and feeling helpless, especially going from vital life to now in the bed and having to rest, and that's not the protocol. And so, definitely having people who came into my life to put up a shower chair while I was in the hospital, I mean, and to put up a railing and to do all this stuff for me changed my life dramatically. Putting up a railway for me to come inside my house and to do all of that gave me that independence. And with that, it was sort of like, this is what I can do to help, given my newfound condition. And that's our QOL.
What is your vision for the future of the QLL group? Are there any upcoming projects that you can talk about or you're excited about?
Right now, we're in a transition. We are getting the board and all that together, but there will be upcoming projects coming up. We're always looking for donations to help with those projects that are coming up. Some of the things that we have is um, helping out the veterans, helping out some of the Scottish Rite children's facility with some of their um, kids that they need as far as um, um, medical equipment. Uh, there's a thing with a domestic violence group that we're talking to and trying to figure all that out. There's a lot of things in the works, but I am taking it on a case by case, so we're all good, and making sure that we're not overloading ourselves, and making sure that we are giving the attention that is needed most to the area that is in the most need. And that's where we are with QOL. And all donations are needed from a dollar to a quarter to whatever. But um, we are looking just to what we have been doing is the Salvation Army residents has been one of our biggest customers, and we've been giving away a lot of those to those elderly and those who just can't, get those. And with that comes referrals from their friends who are outside of that market, and we deliver to their friends who just can't seem to get what they need from the simplest things. And that's where, we are doing right now is just grassroots, and we will get bigger and better. And especially in 2024, we're looking to expand a little bit bigger. So be on the lookout for that. Definitely.
James, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your vulnerability and your openness. I am so grateful for your insights and the work, the exciting work that QOL Group is doing. Um, how can people get a hold of you? And you talked about donations. Um, how can people, is there on your website, is there a place that they could donate, and how else can they
Yes,
help support the QOL group?
right. So there is a website. There's https colon slash slash QOLgroup.net. You could go on there and it says donate. You put in your information. Um, we'll put you down, and you can donate whatever you can, or whatever you're willing to. Um, Send you out your acknowledgement for the 501c3 as your IRS tax return, so you can get that done on that one. Um, I'm looking to spice up the website and put out there things that you can possibly actually buy for certain individuals. Now, given um, what we have going on and uh, HIPAA, this won't be a correlation for a particular person. This would just be like, if you want to if you want to buy a wheelchair to donate for blah, for this is how much this is. If you want to donate a wheelchair, if you want to donate a stroller, this is how much. If you want to donate this is what this is. And so, looking to do a few updates on those things. But there are going to be plenty of campaigns coming along for 2024. And you can reach us out there on that platform, or you can reach me on my email, which is james.jones@qol.net, and that's JAMES.JONES at QOL Group, GROUP.net, and email me. Um, and, those are the two things that I would recommend if you want to reach out. And always, we could use some volunteers on some things that we do have coming up, and those things will be reached out later. And so we're trying to set up the newsletter, and we're going to be in full force. So we're looking for this to be something that is really impactful,
Thank
especially for those that are in the most need. And in this time in our community, in our culture, and in our country, this is of importance because there are more people who are becoming disabled and who are in need and who are not being able to receive what they are needing for the basic of good for them to have the quality of life that is needed. And I think right now we're all seeking some part of joy or happiness, and to give a little bit back for someone as simple as a shower chair for them to actually bathe themselves or to do that for themselves. That goes a long way with people's mental health. A stroller to go outside and just sit. It brings so much joy to a person to not have to be lifted out or to do anything. So that's what we're trying to do, is bring a little bit of happiness into a world where we don't see much. Not saying it's not out there. It is. We just don't see it. And I think that's what we need to do, is vocalize this more and make this more of the norm versus the isolated incidents that just keep happening. So joy and happiness. But Tracy, thank you for having me on the show. And I want to applaud you for doing what you do for comfort and closure, because without that, there would be people who could not understand how to get through the grieving process. And I appreciate what you do
Thank you.
on a day-to-day basis. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for having me, and you inspire me.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, so, folks, if there's one thing to be sure of, it's that the human spirit is incredibly resilient. James' journey from loss and grief to empowerment for himself and for others is a testament to this. In the face of challenges, we are not diminished, but rather we become refined, shaped, and often expanded. Thank you for joining us today. If you've any questions or concerns, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.